Eric, I don't know if I believe what I just saw. Welcome in, everybody, to a flagship podcast recap of perhaps the craziest game I've ever covered in my 32 years of covering Texas Longhorns football. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined as always by my esteemed colleague, Eric Henry of Horns247.com, and proud Tampa Catholic graduate. We are still here in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Texas wins 39-31 in double overtime over Arizona State, Eric, after Texas had a 24-8 lead with 10 minutes left in the game. And then it seemed like the body blows by Arizona State really started adding up as the Texas Longhorns started melting down. Arizona State runs for 214 yards in this game, 130 by Cam Scatterbo, who took over the game down the stretch, finished with 130 yards rushing, 143 yards rushing, on 30 carries, had 8 catches for 99 yards, and threw a touchdown pass of 42 yards to Malik McClain that really ignited the momentum for the Sun Devils, who, didn't get into overtime against the Longhorns until Bert Auburn missed 2 field goals. He missed a 48-yarder with a minute 44 left, and then he missed a 38-yarder from the center of the field. Eric, as time expired, he hooked it into the left upright. That sends the game into overtime. And on 4th and 13, with Texas trailing 31-24 in the first overtime, 4th and 13, after Kelvin Banks' false starts on 4th and 8, Texas has 4th and 13, and Quinn Ewers finds Matt Golden for a 28-yard touchdown. On the very next play, he finds Gunnar Helm for a 25-yard touchdown down the seam. He hits Matt Golden for the 2-point conversion, Eric. And oh ho hum, Texas moves on to the college football playoff semifinals, most likely against Ohio State, who's beating Oregon's ass right now. They would meet.
There goes our PG rating, Chip. Yeah. I'm just playing with you.
In the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, January 10th, Eric. I take it away.
Well, listen, Chip, if you said in your 30-something years of doing this is the wildest game you've ever covered, then in my 9 years of doing this, it is by far the wildest game I've ever covered. Chip, I hate to go so inside journalism, but you know this, right? Like the old adage is, you never start writing, because right when you start, you can end up erasing a whole crap ton of words.
I deleted 1,500 words tonight. So I apologize for my first story. I don't even know what it says.
Listen, with 10-16 left, Chip, this game was 24-8. Quinn Ewers, the Quinn Ewers that we've talked about, the guy who's willing to use his legs to extend plays, to go get first downs, to go get conversions. We saw that guy. He scrambles for a touchdown. You're thinking this thing is over, right? I'm thinking, all right, we're on the way to Arlington. Who's next? Well, Kenny Dillingham's club had something to say about that. They rattle off the final 16 points of regulation, the first touchdown of overtime. And then, Chip, it gets down to, as you mentioned, a 4th and 13. Kelvin Banks, Chip, we've talked about pre-snap penalties all year. Kelvin Banks is never the guy we talk about with pre-snap penalties. He jumps.
The Outland and Lombardi winner.
Unanimous All-American. To go from 4th and 8 to 4th and 13, and I will not lie, in that moment, I thought, man, this thing is done, because this offense, Chip, I don't want to say they were faltering, but they weren't performing well. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You take a look at the numbers here. They had 8 yards, Chip, in the third quarter of play. Third quarters, third quarters have been this team's kryptonite all season long. Here are the numbers. All right, I was at Arkansas State, Arizona State. They get 5 points, right? It's not like they, just clawed their way back in the third quarter, but had 125 yards to Texas's 8. Texas rushed for -3 yards compared to Arizona State's 100 yards. And that kept them around. And then
go ahead. Real quick,
Chip.
how about the reward for the Texas defense?
Yeah.
Coming up with a 4th and goal.
Yeah.
Vernon Broughton slams Cam Scadaboo. That he knocks him sideways. Andrew Makuba, Jelani McDonald get him down. Another goal line stand. Goal line stand against A&M. Goal line stand against Clemson. Goal line stand against Arizona State. What's the reward for that goal line stand? Giving up a safety on the next play.
And you noted it, right? Both noted it, that it was, listen, you're back up against your own end zone. It's a tough call. Matt Golden, for all of the heroics, and we'll get to Matt Golden in a second, he misses a block that allows for, was it Wisner?
Wisner got smashed by Shamari Simmons, who's now playing in the game after not playing in the first half because of a targeting suspension. He blows up Wisner. The ball goes flying into Quinn Ewer's hands. He gets mobbed by a posse of Sun Devils for the safety. And so the defense, who just, stuffed an 11-play drive that took like 5 minutes off the clock, goes right back on the field again.
And to further emphasize your point, you talked about what was the defense's reward. Well, this game, and Steve Sarkisian talked about it, I asked him in the postgame, right? What did you make of that third quarter? He said the third quarter was kind of a microcosm of the first half. Well, Chip, I'm looking at it right here. Through 3 quarters of play, Arizona State had 32 minutes and 49 seconds.
32 minutes.
32 minutes and 49 seconds of time of possession compared to Texas's 12 minutes and 11 seconds of time of possession. There's no doubt. Steve Sarkisian said in the postgame that his defense did start to wear down because of how long they were on the field. But to cap it, I'm looking at the quote right here. Andrew Makuba saves the day with the game-clinching interception. He says that whole drive started with Jahdae Barron. I told him that our energy was low on the defensive side of the ball. Well, with good reason, Chip. They'd only been out there all game, but our energy was low on the defensive side of the ball. And he talked to our defense and brought the spirit and energy up. It was all discipline. The Sun Devils receiver ran his route. Drew was in good position. This is his quote. I was in good position and looked back for the ball, and I knew I wasn't dropping. It was all about making a play when your name was called.
Chip, he made so many plays. I don't know how he wasn't the defensive MVP of this game, Eric. I mean, he had that 4th down stop with Jelani McDonald. The guy was everywhere, and then he makes the interception to end the game. They give the defensive MVP to Jahdae Barron. That's great, but it sure felt like Makuba, or maybe even Trey Moore, who had 2 sacks, including a 4th down sack. But, man, that defense, they had a little left, Eric.
Chip, I'm going to pass it to you, taking what direction you want, just to let the listeners in behind the curtain. As Chip noted, we're still at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the last shuttle's leaving here at 8:50 to get back to the media hotel. So might be a little bit of a shorter post-game reaction, but Chip, dive into it so we can bounce off each other back.
Yeah, I think, when you look at this, for everything that went wrong, I mean, Mo Blackwell gets a free rush on a punt, and the only thing he blocks is the punter.
Yeah.
And how does he not block that ball? But that allows ASU to go down and kick a field goal. They give up a fake punt on a really well-executed play by Arizona State, where they throw it to a defensive tackle who's one of the up men punt protectors. Bert Auburn misses 2 field goals, and now, his string of he was 5 of 5 on field goals to tie or take the lead in the final 2 minutes of a game. Now that's gone. But you know what? A little love real quick for Michael Kern, who had his best day as a Longhorn. He averaged 45.7 yards per punt, had a 57-yard punt.
Yeah.
But Eric, it was so up and down. This game was so crazy. And, 24-8 with 10 minutes left, Texas is winning. And then everything that could go wrong does go wrong. The defense is giving out. The offense isn't doing anything. And I asked Jake Majors about the run game. Like, what happened? You guys ran for 53 yards on 30 carries, 1.8 yards per carry after running for 292 against Clemson. And he said they stacked the box, but that's still not an excuse. They were daring us to beat them throwing the football, and they did initially. But Eric, one of those scores in the first half was a 75-yard punt return by Silas Bolden. Like, the offense did nothing for 2.5 quarters. That's alarming. But man, Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State defense, what a scheme, what a day. Because Texas's offense was stymied. They were on the, they were in the morgue.
Yeah.
And somehow some heart paddles got passed to them, and they come up with enough in the overtime, which is just unbelievable. Your thoughts on the lack of running game? I didn't feel like they really committed to it, but 53 yards rushing after 292 against Clemson. Let me tell you, if they rush for 53 yards against Ohio State on the 10th, they're going to get paddled.
Chip, I will say this, right? In their defense, this was a bit of a weird game in the sense that, yes, Texas races out to the 14-3 lead. You talk about Silas Bolden's punt return. I'll quickly give Silas's quote real quick. He says, he's been waiting the entire season. Sometimes it felt like he was forcing it. No shocker there, Silas being fearless. Sometimes it felt like he was forcing it. He felt like as the season went on, he started to play a little bit smarter, was waiting for his opportunity. And today he got that opportunity. But yeah, Chip, the game was a little bit weird. You take a look at the total plays run, 5 plays run in the first quarter. Say it again. 5 plays run in the first quarter for Texas compared to 26. In the second quarter, 16 plays compared to 21 for Arizona State. Those 16 plays only net 3 points, 58 yards for the Texas offense. You go look at the third quarter here, 6 plays compared to Arizona State's 21, right? Chip, through 3 quarters, 68 plays compared to 27 plays. So I only say that is to say it's hard to establish a run game when you aren't running that many plays. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because that first drive, what was it? 2 plays, 77 yards, quick strike score. You get the punt return. It is hard to get into a bit of a flow. And Steve Sarkisian, as a play caller, it's a bit hard to get into a flow. So I'm going to give that as a bit of a caveat to the run game as being an excuse. But I will say this, Chip, as I pass it back to you. This is not the first time in the 2 years I've been covering the team, I'm sure in the 4 years that you've covered Steve Sarkisian, that you've heard him say, well, this was a bit of a weird game and the flow we've heard that before, right? So at a certain point, I'm not necessarily blaming Steve, but at a certain point, you have to look inward at that flow as opposed to the game just played out that way.
Well, and, we haven't seen Texas struggle to run the football like this, except when they've played Georgia. This was a little bit of a look-ahead game, if that's even possible in the college football playoff. So maybe there was a lack of focus, 10 penalties in this game for Texas, and it was a Big Ten crew. I thought the penalties were pretty fair. A couple of players on each side got looked at for targeting. Both got to stay in the game, including Michael Taff. Gunnar Helm doesn't catch a pass until there are 3 minutes and 34 seconds left in the game. This is your receptions leader for the season. But then he makes one of the plays of the game with the 25-yard touchdown on the seam route in the second overtime to give Texas the advantage. It was such a weird game, Eric. It really was. Isaiah Bond, he was out there.
He was. Clearly 100% when he was out there.
He was not 100% because I saw him after the game walking out of the locker room and he's limping again. So maybe more of a decoy today than anything. Texas only 5 of 13 on third down. They did convert both fourth downs. Ethan Burke with a blocked field goal. That was huge because that was after an 11-play drive by Arizona State following their successful fake punt. So the Texas defense was doing things in the first half. They had 3 fourth down stops, 2 in the second quarter, 1 in the third quarter. And those were huge because let me tell you this, Eric, at the end of that third quarter, here was Arizona State's last 5 drives at the end of the third quarter. 11 plays, 45 yards, 4 minutes, 51 seconds, Texas fourth down stop. 9 plays, 37 yards, 3 minutes, 45 seconds, Texas fourth down stop. 12 plays, 61 yards, 3 minutes, 27 seconds, Ethan Burke blocks the field goal. 11 plays, 60 yards, 5 minutes, 41 seconds, the goal line stand. And then 11 plays, 50 yards, 6 minutes, 51 seconds off the clock in that third quarter to a field goal. That defense was bending,
Yes.
and then it finally broke in the fourth quarter.
No, Chip, to that point again, we talked about the time possession. That's where it is. And I asked Andrew Makuba this question. I said, hey, man, how much does you guys train in that Central Texas Austin heat where it's 115, 120? How much does that help you in a game like this when you're just left out there on the field? Because they played, obviously overtime is not a timed session, but over 40-something minutes being out there on the field. And he said, listen, in a game like this, it's all resolve. It's all going back to summer workouts. It's all those sprints, all of those things that mentally have to keep you, in check to not give up those plays. And again, Chip, I have to give just so much credit to this Texas defense because the red zone stuff, we've heard about red zone lockout. You've written about it. I've written about it. It's a thing where this defense can easily say, all right, we're not having the type of success that we had weeks 1 through 12, right? What's going on? They take so much pride in not letting opponents, as their words say, get in the paint. I'm going to quickly just touch on a couple of comments here really quick, so I want to get this in while we're still taping here. First off, yes, I absolutely think Texas has a chance against Ohio State if that's going to be the opponent. This looks like it's going to be the case. But as we're talking about, they have things to clean up most notably on the offensive side of the football. Toro asked how much of the lack of offense is because of ASU's defense. You got to give ASU's defense, I'm forgive me for not knowing their defensive coordinator off the top of my head and name. Give them credit for a hell of a game plan, right? I mean, they got punched in the mouth early, right, with the offensive score, as we mentioned, the punt return, but they held strong. For the duration, really, of you get out of that first quarter, they had a heck of a game. I mean, Chip, what the final numbers here again when you talk about total yards, 320 to 465. 320, that's not a bad, including overtime. Again, that's 5 periods. That's not a bad outing against this offense. They put themselves in position to win. Kenny Dillingham, I went to the postgame. Kenny Dillingham said, Chip, that this loss he felt was 100% on him for the defensive call that went down, that all-out blitz that allowed for Matthew Golden to get that touchdown. But no, I think this was just an excellent game plan by Arizona. And give them credit, man. Hey, you talked about this being the best game you've covered in 30-something years. Cam Scatterbo, before we finish taping, hell of a performance.
Unbelievable.
So give that dude credit as well.
Unbelievable. 143 yards rushing, 99 yards receiving, and a 42-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah.
That dude was a monster, and so was Sam Levitt. I mean, he ran for 13 carries, 60 yards. He converted a 3rd and 14 himself in overtime. I mean, they came up with some unbelievable plays to make this just the craziest game I've ever covered. Let me give you this comment from Michael Taft, because you were at the breakouts. I went into the locker room and I walk up. Michael Taft is sitting bewildered, just like exhausted in front of his locker. His knee is bleeding. He's waiting for ice bags for both shoulders. And the first words out of his mouth when I ask him, what on earth do you make of this game? He said, I'm so proud of the offense. He said, 4th and whatever, 13. Probably everybody in the stadium except our team, the people inside this locker room, thought it was over. Quinn senses an all-out blitz, checks the protection, and hits Matt Golden for the touchdown. That gave us a chance. That just gave him a chance, Eric. That did not finish the game.
Yeah.
That gave him a chance. And Taff, who's become the quote of this whole team, best quote of the whole team, said, He said,
There you go.
my knees are bloody, my shoulders are banged up, everything about my body needs some ice baths, but we still got breath in our lungs. We're still going to fight. We're still moving on. And I thought that just kind of encapsulated everything.
Chip, kind of my final thought here to kind of encapsulate this game. I don't want to, two things can be true, right? This defense is playing at a national championship level, but they cannot do it all alone. They do need some support from the offense. And the other thing that can be true, right, is for all of the things that went wrong in the second half, the level of perseverance. I know it sounds like coach speak. It sounds cliche. To not bend, Chip. You've covered this program a long time. I'm sure you can think of games that if things had trended in that direction, kind of like those ebbs and flows of a basketball game, right, those runs, that Texas would have folded. And I have to give them credit. Well, listen, we'll have plenty more on the flagship podcast when we record. We get back to Austin. I have to give Texas credit. They showed resolve, and they leave Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a victory.
Unbelievable. Like, I still cannot believe it. Thanks, everybody. We're about to get kicked out of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so we got to go. But as Eric said, we will have much, much, much more. And we have much, much, much more over at horns247.com. So get over to horns247.com. That's where we'll be until next time. For Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. Our thoughts and prayers are with the city of New Orleans. What a frightening way to wake up to New Year's Day. Hope everyone is as safe and as they possibly can be. But for Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. We're signing off from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium where Texas wins in double overtime, 39-31 over Arizona State. Moving on to the college football playoff semifinals, January 10th in Arlington against Ohio State. We'll have much, much more. So we'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith. Happy New Year.